What does it take to make an effective leader? And the two words I kind of want to hone in on are effective and leader, because Hitler was an effective leader.
Yes.
So you have to ask yourself, what kind of an effect are you looking for?
Sure.
I truly believe everybody's a leader of something, if not just themselves, their household, their brothers or sisters, whatever. And so it's really about being a good leader versus just being a leader. And I don't know if you know this fun fact. I know you're a student of the Word. You love the Word of God. You're about to graduate, right?
That's true. I graduate in a little over a month.
Oh, I bet you can just taste it.
Yeah. Oh, it's in the air. It's people call it allergies, but I'm pretty sure it's just excitement.
That's awesome. So I know you're a student of the Word. It's one of the things I love about you the most. Did you know that in the Scriptures, the word leader and leaders is mentioned a grand total of 6 times?
Really?
6 times.
I did
And
not know
3
that.
of those are in negative connotations, like the leaders blind leading the blind 6 times. But servant is mentioned hundreds and hundreds of times. And it's a catchphrase now, but servant style leadership was thousands of years old.
Right.
And when I think about an effective leader, I think about somebody who understands what it is to serve people in leadership. You and I discussed earlier a little bit, the disciples were asking who's the greatest. They were getting real carnal, real fleshly. These are people who saw God do miracles and through them and by them and with them. And here they are arguing about who's the greatest in the kingdom. And Jesus did not say, you shouldn't desire to be great. What he said is, if you want to be great, serve. Be the servant of all. So I have a question for you because of the age difference and the time in the ministry difference. You've had leaders that have poured into you and helped raise you up. What made those people effective for you? What was the thing that you saw that was like, I want to be like that?
Yeah. Well, when I think about some of the most impactful leaders in my own life, one person comes to mind. His name was Nathan. And what made Nathan so effective, at least in my mind, was that he saw something in me that other people perhaps didn't see or weren't willing to sow into.
Okay.
And so what made him so amazing is that anytime I was with him, he would encourage me to be me. I remember a particular conversation I had with him. I was interning for him. He was an outreach pastor.
Okay.
And I really like taking orders. I really like just being told exactly what to do.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll go do it.
Okay.
And, I thought that was exactly what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And he pulled me into this conversation and he just kind of opened up with, Connor, I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for everything that you're doing. But, God wants more than just a soldier. I want more than just a soldier. I want someone who isn't just going to wait for orders and then go do them. I want someone who is themselves, who is able to not just take an order, but is willing to bring themselves to the table, who's willing to be the one to make the first initiative, perhaps. And that really shocked me because I thought, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
I'm being submissive.
Yeah, you're telling me and I'm going and doing it. What more can I do? And he was like, I want you to bring yourself to me.
Yeah.
Not what you think I want you to be. I want you to be you. And so I think one of the things that makes such an impactful leader would be someone who sees a situation differently than others.
Yeah.
Who sees the people that they are leading not as just products that get them what they want.
Sure.
But truly sees the people that they are leading and pulls them up to their level.
That's good. That's so good.
So I think that is, at least for me, the thing that when I just think of an incredible leader, right? I think of Jesus. Clearly, I think Jesus was probably objectively
pretty good at it.
the most effective leader. And just as you brought up earlier, he wasn't just trying to get the disciples to be submissive. He sent them out.
Yeah.
He taught them to do what he was doing.
That's good.
He said, hey, in the Great Commission, Matthew 28, don't just don't just go, but go and teach them.
That's right.
To obey what I have commanded you to obey.
Yeah.
And so he gave them responsibilities. And I think a good leader is willing to take the downfall for a responsibility that he gives someone else underneath him.
Absolutely.
And partner with those that he is leading.
Yeah. I think, again, most people do not understand that to be an effective leader, you got to have thick skin, because this is a tough job.
Sure.
Everybody thinks they want to be the leader, but what they really want is a name on the door and a big paycheck, but they don't want the responsibility.
Yeah.
And a great leader understands he is responsible for a lot of things, but mainly raising up those people God has placed in his hand. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me that the great leaders do see individuals and they see gifts and talents. One of the greatest things you can do as a leader is build great teams. But the way to build a great team is to recognize and appreciate and apply people's differences. Because to build a great team, you don't need people who are all the same. Right. You all go off the cliff together that way. You need those guys that are thinking futuristic. You need the guys that get it done. They want to put their hands to something today. You need the strategic thinkers. You need the individuals who want to get along. You need them to work together. And that's complex, because the get along and the get it done, they can be opposed to one another. Because I know people who'll get it done, but they'll have 6 body bags in the process. You know, they've hurt people. People have left the church because of the way they were treated. They got the thing done, but man, they just plowed over people. And then you got the guy that wants to sing Kumbaya and get along, and let's just, eat donuts and coffee and laugh and joy.
What are we doing again?
Yeah. A year and a half later, it's still not done.
Sure.
If you could get those people to work together, now you've got an effective team, because you're using the different gifts that God has placed in them, their talents, and so on and so forth, for the benefit of the goal. Yeah. To serve the Lord, to build the kingdom. But people are crazy. I don't know if you know that. But some guy wrote that in a book one time, and he was right. People are crazy. But it's a universal sickness. They're crazy everywhere. Yeah. And we're all somebody's crazy. You know, we might not think that, but whoever is over us, we're probably a part of their crazy. Yeah. But they're willing to pull out of us what God has placed in us.
Yeah. And I think just talking about just the awareness that others are crazy and that you are susceptible to the same exact thing. I think that's also contributes to a healthy style of leadership of, I'm not greater than the people I'm leading.
That's good.
The leader is not inherently more important than the people that he is leading. They are valuable, sure. Yeah. But their value is not in their position. Their value is not in, I guess, what they're doing. Yeah. And I think when a leader starts to see themselves as above those that he is leading, it can get really easy to become someone who's stepping over people, who is willing to make sacrifices, but by sacrifices, it's not his sacrifices. Right. It's the sacrifices of the people that they're leading. And so I'm thinking, as I've thought about leadership, I think one of the single greatest values of a leader is that of humility. Yes. So good. A humble leader partners. A humble leader connects. A humble leader doesn't just see the end product as the end all be all goal. Right. Right. So there is this trying to find the middle of, we don't just want to dance around in circles and everyone's having a great time, but nothing's getting done. But we also don't want to be so forward facing in the sense that we're not looking to those that we're leading. We're just expect them to follow us because our position or because we think that we're great. Right. A leader is the one that is pushing the people that they're leading together towards what needs to be accomplished, towards the vision.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, and it almost sounds like an oxymoron to say a humble leader, because most people think of leaders as somebody who's got all the answers. But I learned a long time ago that humility realizes everything I have, I've been given. Paul said to those disciples who were arguing about all the stuff that God gave them to do, the abilities that they had, and Paul said to them, he said, wait. What do you have that you weren't given. The truth of the matter is everything you have is a gift. If you're musically inclined, God gave you that gift. If you're intelligent, God gave you that gift. If you can build things with your hands, God gave you that gift. So to brag about something you've been given is not really cool, right? So humility says again that I can honor others. I can value others. I think one of the things that I love about the church I'm involved in is the core value of that we value one another, that I'm not greater than anybody else. I might have different responsibilities, but as far as value goes, we're all valued. We honor one another up and down, not just up. And a great leader is able to bring people with him who are actually better than him, and he's willing to say they're better than him.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of leaders in this world today are afraid to bring somebody on who may be more gifted than them because they're afraid they're going to outshine them.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to let that person shine, the team benefits, right? If you have a Michael Jordan on your team, you kind of want to use him because he's gifted.
For sure. For sure. I think just talking about that, about humility is not necessarily thinking that you're bad at what you do.
That's right.
I think true humility, humility and confidence are not opposed to one another.
That's exactly right.
I think humility allows for proper confidence.
Yes.
Confidence that is not based in pride, but is truly based in like a thankfulness of a gift, thankfulness and an ability. And as we were just talking about humility, I mean, I think that one of the most popular things that people think about when they think about humility is Paul's encouragement to the Philippians to have the same attitude that Christ had in Philippians 2, who, being in the very form God, became man. Like when we just really sit with that moment, with that thought for a little bit of God, the greatest leader, the greatest being, became a baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
A helpless baby.
That's right.
And it's like, man, when you look at the cross, there's not room to be prideful. When you really look at the cross and who took on the cross, you can't have anything but just a sense of awe and humility. And good. So as we lead, I think one, as Paul also encouraged in a couple other letters, follow me as I follow who? Christ. And it's exactly. So when we are leading, we can't take our eyes off of him.
Yes, that's right.
Because when we start to take our eyes off of him and we start to look at ourselves, we start to become conceited.
That's right.
Our confidence might just be a nice word for pride.
Or arrogance,
Yeah, or arrogance. And you brought up earlier how you guys had polled people in the past about when you're looking at a leader, do you follow them because of their character?
Yeah.
Or because of their competence?
Yeah.
And the results that you shared with me were, I mean,
they're astounding.
Astounding, yeah.
In a group of 30 or so, they gave them sticky notes and they said, would you follow somebody because of their character or because of their competence? 3 people said because of their competence. Now, we don't want to follow an idiot. That's not what they're saying. But what we're saying is, if you're gifted at what you do, but you're arrogant and you're prideful and you're stepping on everybody to get farther up the ladder and you don't care about people, that creates a negative feeling for that leader. But when that leader walks in humility and integrity and cares about others and wants others to succeed, that's the kind of people we want to follow.
Yeah.
When I look at the individuals that God has placed in my life, they were willing, like you talked about, to see me as an individual and look at what God had placed in me and honor it. Now, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I got spankings for talking, right? My parents did not know what to do with me because I got good grades. My teachers love me, but every report card, Lee likes to talk too much.
Yeah.
And so other people, though, understanding the scriptures and seeing in me, hey, that's a gift. Let's use that was such a freeing thing for me. Because they didn't say, well, man, he might be a better speaker than me. We need to keep him down here.
Yeah.
Let's use that gift. Let's see what God's got and use it to its fullest. Those are great leaders.
Yeah. I'll throwing it back to Nathan all the way at the beginning. One thing that he told me that,
hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, would you press like and share? Let's get back to the podcast.
has just stuck with me since he brought this example up is he was talking about how if he was in charge currently of neurosurgeons, of rocket scientists, he doesn't know more than they do.
Right.
But he's confident that he could lead them.
He could lead.
That's
right.
Yeah, leadership is not just about how much you know.
Yeah.
It's what you do with what you do know.
That's
it's how you connect the people that it's, hey, I recognize that you're way more knowledgeable in this area.
Right.
How can I best facilitate to let you be all of you?
Yeah.
How can I lead this team in a way that the people who have the gifts that I don't have are able to exercise them and don't feel as though that they are going to commit some sort of offense by outshining me, right? And a leader's okay with the people that he is leading outshining him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that's kind of what you want if you have a healthy desire.
You bet.
So what are some things that you think would be good for someone who's looking to grow in leadership? What are some things that they can start to implement?
Everything that they can learn, it will be beneficial. There is nothing that is wasted when it comes to knowledge. The beautiful thing about knowledge is once you have it, you can't be taxed on it anymore and they can't take it away. And quite honestly, one of the gifts and desires that I think I would want every leader I'm connected to is to have a growth mindset where they are not committed to I've learned enough. I'm okay. I don't need any more. If you're not growing, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is the leader is the lid for his ministry, for his business, for his marriage. Mm-hmm. And so we need to keep growing because if we want to see the ministry grow, every church I've ever been to, I've told them, if you want the church to grow, you have to grow because you're the limit. And so I think emotional intelligence is something that, man, it's just so lacking that people think you're just going to naturally know, and you don't. You have to work at realizing the feel of a room to know when somebody's shut down, to know when somebody starts acting in fear, when somebody starts becoming angry. I'm blown away at how many people are completely oblivious.
Yeah. I work with teenagers.
There you go. I rest my case.
I work with teenagers and I've worked with them for a long time, and it's shocking sometimes just how unaware I say teenagers, not picking on my teenagers, because there are times where I am just completely oblivious to how I'm coming across in a room.
It's called marriage.
Like, oh, I didn't even realize I did that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
And so like becoming more self-aware so that you can lead well is important. But
absolutely,
how can we become more self-aware of what we're doing? Because it's kind of paradoxical. Like, how can you become self-aware if you're not self-aware?
That's exactly. It's interesting to me because self-awareness has become something I've learned more and more about in the last 5 years than I have in the previous 35. But actually, self-awareness comes from others speaking into you and helping you see. Because self-awareness is about how we impact others. Mm-hmm. And we don't actually know how we impact others till we ask. We can think we're impacting people this way, but without feedback, we could be in the dark. We think we're loving. We think we're kind. We think we're challenging people, but how they perceive us may be different. And so one of the things I do, at least every 2 years, I send out a survey to all the people who are connected to me, and I ask them, am I approachable? Do I challenge you? Am I helping you get where you want to go? Do you think I care about you more than I care about this particular ministry or this particular thing being done? That feedback can be painful. But it's the only way to grow. And that's what I find. If you want to be a leader, you have to be willing to not have your feelings on your sleeve here because your heart is right. But people don't always know your heart. So you can say something meaning one thing and they can receive it another. And I've been so grateful for the feedback because it's the only way for us to change. And I try to encourage the people I'm connected to that I'm helping to raise up, not to take it personal. Like, here's the thing. Some days as a father, you could write the book by me. You can go, man, that's what it is to be a father. Other times you need to hit me with the book. I dropped the ball. But that doesn't change my value. In God, I'm still a 10, but what I do fluctuates.
Sure.
And so we have to teach people to separate themselves from what they do and who they are, because they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
What we do vacillates. Some days we're really good at it, some days we're not. But who we are, Christ died for. That never changes. And so when it comes to leadership, we need to be willing to look at and allow people to speak into us those things that we can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. And so self-awareness is kind of an oxymoron, because the only way to really become more self-aware is to let others speak into you and to truly take some time to meditate on, why did I respond that way? There are things that we do, we don't even know why we respond that way.
Yep.
When we were 5 years old, we had an encounter that we don't even remember, but it caused our mind to go, that's scary, don't go there, or whatever. So I know one of those things that I've really enjoyed about quiet time with the Lord is to meditate on why I do what I do, why things affect me the way they do, and to truly let the Lord begin to speak to me and show me. That's a defense mechanism, because when you were 13, man, you got hammered about that. And you said, I'm never going to let that happen again.
Yeah.
Those are eye-opening events, but the Lord wants to show you so that you can deal with it. You know, I loved Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I don't know if you read that book or went through that, but the idea of you got to go back before you can go forward was revolutionary to me. Because as a Christian, that's dead and gone. I'm not that man anymore.
Yeah.
But if you haven't dealt with that pain, if you haven't dealt with that issue, you bring it into the new life. And so there are a lot of things that people do. They don't even know why they do it. They're not self-aware, but others can speak into it. God can speak into it. And we need to be willing to not be great at everything and it not be, oh, I'm a terrible leader.
Right.
I don't care how gifted the leader is. He doesn't know it all. He's limited. You could be if I started talking to you about welding, I don't know how much welding you've done, but if I talk about, hey, I want you to start this thing with a 6011, about an 1/8 inch in diameter, and then I want you to cover pass it with a 7018, and then I want you to grind it with an 80 grit 4-inch angle grinder.
Yeah. I'd be Googling a lot. Lots of YouTube.
That's right. So it doesn't mean you're stupid.
Yeah.
It means you're ignorant. You don't have any knowledge about that particular thing.
Right.
So every leader has areas he's not aware of, he's not good at, and we need to be okay with that.
Yeah. Being aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not. Well, this is kind of a selfish question.
Okay.
How can you determine when you should be the one who's stepping up to lead and when to let others lead? Because we work in an environment where there's a lot of leaders. And so it's really easy to let them lead.
Sure.
But how can you be aware or become more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess more aware. When can you use discernment to know I should be the one who's leading versus I'm going to back off and let someone else lead?
That's really good. And I have a kind of different view on that. I think you ought to lead all the time.
Okay.
But what I mean by that doesn't necessarily mean you're supposed to be the boss in every situation.
Sure. Yeah.
I lead in every meeting I'm a part of because I use what I know, what is God's gifted me with. And if I'm in a meeting and somebody else is actually the boss, the head of that particular meeting, part of the way I lead is by offering what I know about that subject, offering my understanding of that particular thing, and not keeping it to myself. Because so many decisions are made because nobody spoke up. And then they speak up afterwards. Oh, I knew that wasn't going to work. Wait.
Yep.
You should have said that way back. And we've had to teach people, if you don't share a thing in this meeting, don't come afterwards and say, you didn't believe that was going to work, or you knew it wasn't. You should have said that then.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is to lead. It's to put your input in where it's needed, where it's necessary. Just because the people, even you respect. This is one thing I had to learn the hard way, is that people began to respect me so much that if I said it was blue, nobody wanted to say it was green. It's like, I'm not going to argue. If Pastor Lee says it's blue, it's got to be blue.
Right.
And one of the greatest things I've learned was to be the last one to talk, because great ideas came because I didn't shut it down.
Yeah. Okay.
And it wasn't even intentional. It wasn't even intentional.
Yeah.
I thought, like most leaders, well, I'm supposed to lead the way. And yet some of the greatest ideas came from people who wouldn't have spoken if I was speaking. So I've learned, and I do this all the time in meetings now, I've zipped up my lip and I've thrown away the key. That lets everybody know I want to be the last one to speak.
Yeah.
Because people started sharing and it's like, that's brilliant. I wouldn't have come up with that, but they did.
Yeah.
And I learned that I need them to invest. I need them to speak up.
Yeah.
I don't need them to be intimidated because I said it was blue, that they might push back and go, I thought it was green.
Right.
That doesn't make them evil or anything else. It just means they've seen it from a different perspective. And I need that perspective if I'm going to lead well. And I have found people that aren't even involved in your particular ministry, like maybe there's somebody who's not involved in youth at all, but they could come up with a great idea because they're not in the forest.
Yeah.
You know and see what you see. And you can get boxed into where you don't even see the cobwebs in the corner anymore because you've seen them so long that they're just a part of the decor.
Yeah.
But I could come in and go, why is there cobwebs in that corner, right? That's what people who are not involved in our ministry can see. They can see things we can't see. I actually paid people when I was in Atoka to do the secret shopper thing.
Okay,
I would go out into the Atoka community and I would pay somebody. I would tell them, I'm going to give you money to go eat after lunch. All I want you to do is answer a few questions.
Sure.
And I would give them the questions. How did you feel? Were you welcome? Did you enjoy the worship? Was the message on point? Did you get anything out of it? Just these kind of things. And it was beautiful to have people show up and go, man, the first thing I saw was the garbage can in the front. It's like, wow. Because it's right there, but because we've drove by it all this time, it's
blind spot.
It's a blind spot.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to lead all the time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to be the boss.
Okay, that's really good because I know that my tendency is like if there's another leader in the room, most of the time I just kind of back up. I'm like, I'm going to let you lead. Again, this kind of goes back to that. I like just being told what to do. It's being told what to do is much easier than being the one who is having to come up with the things to tell.
Absolutely.
But something that you mentioned as you were talking kind of made me think of how do we surround ourselves with people who aren't just going to because
yes, men.
I've noticed that in my own life, I tend to gravitate towards the people that do that.
Sure,
but I recognize that it's not what I need because we've all seen those leaders who they do something on church, it goes viral in a church service, and you're like, somebody didn't say something that should have said something. That pastor threw out an idea, and no one felt that they should say, that's a terrible idea. They've surrounded themselves with people who, whatever idea, even if it's a bad one, they're going to get championed. And so that's blue.
Yeah.
Oh, it's blue. I guess I'm wrong about green. It's like, wow, there's an element of facilitating and creating an environment and a culture that respects leaders.
Yes.
But at the same time, if they get to the point to where they don't even, question, not in the sense of like I'm questioning who you are, but I'm like, okay, let's actually analyze this. Let's be a little bit analytical about what you just said. And creating an environment where they feel like they can approach you and say, hey,
that's good.
I see where you're coming from, but
you actually answered your own question.
Have you thought about that?
You have to create that culture because you either have a culture by osmosis. It just is what it is. Because every church, every ministry, every business has a culture. And it's created by the people who come. They will either create their own culture or you have to be intentional about creating the culture you want. And creating the right culture is really, really hard work. It's why most people don't do it.
Difficult.
They have signs. Here's what we believe. Here's But to actually, that's exactly.
Got my stuff
T-shirts,
on the wall.
got my hat, all that stuff. But to actually create a culture that is really, really hard. But you have to teach it. You have to honor it in every way you can. One of the things, again, about creating that kind of a culture is if you tell people we value your input, you need to value their input.
Yeah, don't just say it because it's the right thing to ask.
Yeah.
We value what you have to say.
Yeah.
Unless I don't like it.
Unless I don't like it. That's exactly right. It is one of the things I loved about my pastor and the people I'm connected to is I've watched it over and over again where somebody who doesn't have any authority, who doesn't have a position, will have an idea. And it's like, that's great.
That's a good idea.
Let's do that. I was thinking this, but that's a much better idea.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, it creates an environment where people know in their knower, you mean it. Mm. When you don't fire somebody who disagreed with you, which is what happens in a lot of places. You disagree, you find yourself looking for another job.
Right.
Here, when you say something, it's okay to disagree. We'll disagree agreeably. Yeah. And we're going to use the best idea. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter who it comes from. If a 7-year-old spoke into a thing, then if it was the best idea, we're going to use it.
Right.
It's not like, well, they don't have a title, they don't have a position. No, but they have a voice. Mm-hmm. And so you have to intentionally create a culture like that by honoring the different gifts. I think, again, when I look at just being a great leader, you have to recognize you and I are different. Mm-hmm. Now, we have a similar goal, and we want to honor God. We want to see people transformed by Jesus, but the way you go about it and the way I go about it may not be the same thing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make your way right and my way wrong or the other way around. It just means we go about it differently. Mm-hmm. So we have to recognize, let's start with the 50,000 view. Men and women are different. Okay? Let's just speak that into existence again, okay? We're not the same. You'll never hear a man say, does this make my butt look big? It's just not going to happen. Men and women are different, but you got to recognize those differences. It's the same way with our gifts and our talents and our calling. We're different. So we have to recognize we're different. Then we need to appreciate those differences. That is, it's not evil for you to be different from me. It's not wrong for you to be different from me. So you have to value that difference. And then we actually need to apply those differences. That's how the team benefits. In my marriage, my wife is so detail-oriented. It drives me crazy. We used to have really bad vacations because I just want to go have a good time. Yeah. I've been hooked up with work 24/7. I'm ready to go get away. I'll get $300. Let's go north. Well, where are we going? I don't care. We'll have fun all the way.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. That doesn't work very well, by the way. But she would be like, we'd be having a vacation and it'd be 2:00 and the family's having a great time. She's like, we got to get on the road. We got to be at such and such.
Printed out schedule of.
It was worse than that. Yeah. I mean, she would literally get panicked and just start. It made it really, really terrible for her and for me. Uh-huh. So we had to learn how to honor one another's differences. Okay. And she had to learn to lighten up a little bit. We're having a great time. We'll do that the next vacation. It's not rigid. It's not in concrete. Yeah. But I had to learn that having a schedule and being on the road keeps us from sleeping in a really, really bad motel that you don't want to talk about because that comes from experience. Go, let's not do that again.
What's this coin machine for?
That's exactly right. Well, I should have known when the guy said at the counter, do you want the room for the whole night? That I was probably not in a great place. I mean,
what else can I rent it for you?
Yeah, I was so tired. I didn't even get it till we go into the room. And we started getting phone calls. Is Cindy working tonight? You realize, oh my goodness, can we just go sleep in the car?
And I think as you're talking, just that revolves around humility, being able to honor someone's difference. Yeah. Like you can't do that if you're not humble.
That's exactly right.
You can't do that if you don't understand that you are not the biggest deal. And I mean, goodness, this entire conversation, humble,
absolutely.
Servant leadership. Yeah. You can't be a servant if you are not humble.
If you're not humble.
You can do some serving.
That's right.
Right. You get the picture taken when you're doing the serving. That's right. And then you put it down and you're like, all right, everyone else, finish the job.
I want to go fishing.
Right. But truly just getting on your knees in the sense of like, I am here to wash the feet. Right. I'm here to wash the feet of my people. Yeah. And that just takes humility. And I think the funny part about humility is like the second you become aware, C.S. Lewis writes about this in his Screw Tape Letters about, hey, if the second that a humble person becomes aware and thinks that they're humble,
That's right. They're not humble.
They're prideful. And so it's like this balance of not necessarily prioritizing, oh, I need to be humble. I need to be humble. I need to be humble. But like just allowing the Holy Spirit, like truly, we're charismatic. We believe that the Holy Spirit works in our hearts in deep and impactful ways, allowing the Holy Spirit who is the very Spirit of Christ, who died on a cross, to work that same kind of work inside of us.
That's so good.
Man,
yeah,
you can lead anybody because you're willing to be with them.
That's right.
And I think that's just such a priority of leaders, just being with the people, not saying, go do this, go do this, go do this.
Yeah.
But how can I help you do this?
That's exactly right. I think Jacob said, having a servant's heart, not just a servant's hands. And I really, really like that because serving comes from the heart. Humility is not thinking you're so bad, you're so terrible. Humility is actually understanding where the power comes from.
Absolutely.
Right. So this idea of not to think more highly of yourself than you ought to, the enemy takes that and just pounds people with, if you take any kind of kudos for anything, it's where this idea comes from. Somebody sings and we go up to them and say, man, I really love that song. It was great. And they say, well, it was just God.
Yeah.
Well, if it was just God, why didn't you stay home? Right? If somebody comes up and tells me, hey, that was a great message. If I say, well, it was just God, I'm actually lying. Because if it was just God, I would have gone fishing. If I could accomplish the same thing and go fishing, I would go fishing. But I actually had to show up.
Right.
So it's realizing it's not me, but I had to show up. We're at best a conduit.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what a conduit is. It's where the power comes through, but it's not the power. Our job is to keep the mud daubers from building a nest in the conduit.
Yeah.
Just getting out of the way. So I really do appreciate this idea that it really does come back down to serving those that are under us. And I think it's 2 Corinthians where Paul said, the authority that God gave me, he gave me not for your destruction, but for your edification, to build you up. Authority and leadership is actually about helping others become better. It's about reaching others and helping them fulfill what God has placed in them. If you'll help others fulfill their destiny, they will help you fulfill yours. And it comes back down to realizing that gift God didn't give me.
Yeah.
He gave them that gift to help me. So I need to help them become the best at it they can. It frustrates me the way our school system is set up because in essence, we tell somebody, like I was gifted at communicating. I've been talking my whole life.
Right.
I talk when nobody's listening. So in school, instead of putting me in communications, in speech class, in drama, in places where my gift could really be excelled and flourish, they said, you're terrible at math, so you need to stop going to these classes and you need to take more math classes. That's equivalent to telling the fish, you swim really, really well, but you can't fly worth beans. So stop swimming and learn how to fly. It's just, it's ludicrous. So I had to come to the place of realizing that I need to think about this differently. And I need to think about it for the sake of others differently. Instead of trying to get everybody to be what we call well-rounded, I need to find what their strengths are and help them be stronger in that. And to make ways for their weaknesses. Like I'm not a great administrator. The word, I can't even spell it. It's just, I'm not a great administrator, but I've surrounded myself with people who are, so they can help undergird and support my deficit. But that's their strength. You know, what's interesting is the things that you hate and I hate, somebody absolutely loves. I hate math, but I've got people who love numbers, man. They eat, breathe it. That's exactly right. It's like, that's demonic. I cannot grasp that. Neither can they grasp, though, my desire to talk.
Right.
I mean, it freaks them out when I have to say, hey, you're going to have to speak to this group of 6. They like get cold sweats and they get sick and nauseous. And I'm like, it's just 6 people. But that's not their strength. So we all have to realize we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. That's actually what humility is. Is to be aware you have strengths and those strengths are God's gift in you. And you have weaknesses that God causes you to need others. Nobody is
not a one-man show.
That's exactly right. That's good.
That's awesome. That's some great. man, I feel like I've got some stuff to go write down.
Well, amen. Me
For
too.
real.
So we done? We done.
We're done.
All right. We're done.
What's your classic saying? That's all. I've said what I've said.
I'm done.